Hi, this is Shar with the Tapped In podcast. I have a guest on my show who I met a little over a year ago. We became friends and we added each other on social media, and I've followed his story. He's talked a lot about his dad who has passed away and how much he admired his father and how close he was to his dad. And a lot of like different posts that were always kind of like, oh, he's been through something, but always has like this positive outcome out of it. And the other day, he posted a picture of him in a hospital bed. And in the caption, I think it said something like, it's been 11 years since this incident where he was shot. And I was like, what? And what was the situation? Like, I had never heard this story. And I had no clue, I still didn't until I talked to him on the podcast. I was just like, I can't wait to hear your story. I was wondering if you'd be willing to share it on my podcast because I don't know a lot of people who have been shot. I mean, you hear it like on crime stories and stuff, and of course it does happen, but I've always just really been curious, like, how does that really feel? It's such a, threatening and very scary situation and very quick. So I was asking him, like, what led up to that? And, why did it happen? How did it feel while you were going through that? How long did it take, to get help? And he went into his story and told me all of the details of it. So I did record my interview with him, but unfortunately my side of the interview did not save. Don't know why, but all I got was his side of the interview. So here's my friend Ceasar Douglas and his story of being shot while in LA 11 years ago. He survived 2 gunshot wounds to the abdomen and 1 to the leg, flatlined in the ambulance, and is alive to tell his story today.
Yeah. So I lived in LA. I went to LA to run a music venue. So I operated a music venue in like the Los Angeles area. Part of my job was to book supporting bands for like the headliners. So I had met a guy who he was kind of like the front man for a band that we wanted to perform. And so I went out to where he was from to meet with him and talk with him and just to kind of get to know him a little bit and just obviously make sure if it was a good fit for the music venue. So the neighborhood that it was in, it doesn't really have the best reputation, which I don't really look at neighborhoods like that. I guess both of my parents are Southsiders, Southside Chicago, so they can get pretty weird over there. So I've been brought up with the mindset of just respect people and mind your own business and stick to your own stuff and you'll be fine. And so anytime somebody tells me that this is a rough area or that's a rough area, I kind of really just kind of brush it off maybe. So we met at his dad's bar, and walking in, it looked like a dive bar, and so I'd been sitting there talking with him, and a guy approached us and was asking the guy I was talking to questions about me, like, who is he? Where's he from? And, I started talking with him and really didn't think much of it. I mean, I thought he was weird. I thought he was asking me weird questions. I wasn't really intimidated at any point. I just was like, he's got a lot of questions about me. And so, fast forward a little bit, he just started talking really like weirdly, just saying like weird things like, but you're from Chicago. And I'm like, yeah, I'm from Chicago. He's like, oh, I hear they're pretty tough there. And I was like, well, people are kind of tough anywhere. I don't think it's just necessarily Chicago. And he was like, oh, okay. He's like, oh, my cousin Mike here. And I was like, oh, he's your cousin? He's like, yeah. He's like, oh, I'd do anything for my cousin Mike. I'm like, that's great, man. That's awesome. He's like, Ceasar, let me ask you, wait, hold on. Is it Ceasar or is it Ceasar? And I was like, it's Ceasar. He's like, okay, good. Thank you. And he's like, do you believe in Jesus? And I was like, I do. He's like, well, because Jesus has my back no matter what I do. And I'm like, that's a strange thing to say to me, but all right, cool, man. And I just kind of brushed it off, and I think he knew that I was brushing him off. I think he kind of felt that I was brushing him off, and it just the conversation. Anytime it starts getting that weird, I just shut it down and kind of move on. But so he kind of stepped back a little bit in the bar behind like the bottles on the bar top. There's a mirror, and I could see him behind me, and he had this like Adidas tracksuit on, and I saw him stick his hand in his pocket, and he was like standing like kind of behind me, and I was like, oh man, this guy's gonna do something dumb. And he whips out a knife, flips it open, and puts it to my throat, and says, "You're in the wrong bar." He's like, "You're in the wrong bar. I'm gonna kill you." And I was just like, "What? Like, what is this?" So, I mean, I can't tell you what went through my mind at that moment, but I can just tell you I reacted, and I kind of just did the old Chuck Norris and just like beat the knife out of his hand, and then like grabbed him, put him in a headlock, and I'm like, "What is wrong with you? Are you kidding me? Like, what are you doing?" And it was like he was probably, I'm gonna say 20 or 30 pounds lighter than me, and I think I was in pretty good shape at the time, so I had him, and um, so that I was like holding him, and I was looking at the guy I was talking to. I'm like, what is with this guy? And he's like trying to get out. He was kind of like squirming around, and then like all of a sudden, like two bouncers showed up and grabbed him and walked him out. I mean, it happened so fast. It was so wild. Like even the conversation was just like when I try to piece it all together, I'm like, how did it go from that to that really quickly? And I'll tell you later, a little bit later, like what it ended up being about. So he got walked out. I sat back down at the bar, and I looked at the guy's name's Mike. I looked at him and I said, "What is that? What was that?" And he was just like, "I'm so sorry." I was like, "That's your cousin?" He's like, "No, he's not really my cousin." I was like, "Well, why did he call him?" He said he was your cousin. He's like, "I'm sorry, man. I'm really, really, really sorry." And like, so this guy is about to lose a gig because over what this guy did. So then I sit down and I just start piecing it all together. I'm like, what was that? Like, and people are looking like there's just a lot of eyes on me, and I'm just like, what the hell? Where the hell am I? And I just kind of like just started looking around, and pretty much most of the men there looked like him. Like had the same type of tracksuit on, had the same kind of like the same hat. They all had the same hat, and I realized that they were all gangbangers, and I was just like, holy shit! Oh my god, this isn't good. Well, so then I was like, I was looking for the knife that I beat out of his hand, and I was like, where did that go? And I'm just like, there's just too much weird here. I'm like, I just threw money on the bar. I was like, keep whatever's left. I'm out. And he's like, please, man, talk to me. And I'm just like, nah, this is at the point where my life's in danger. Like, I don't play around with that. So I realized what it was very quickly. So I got up and I walked out, and I just I look at the bouncer, and I'm just like, what the hell kind of place is this? And so I see him standing on the corner, and Mike had gone out there. He was talking to him. I see him standing on the corner, and I walk up to them, and I said, listen, man, I understand that's your bar. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to walk away. And that's all I said, literally all I said. And before I could get the word away out, he came out of his jacket again with a gun. He had went to his car and got a gun, and he shot me twice at point blank range. So at that point, he's just looking right at me and just bam, bam. And I was just like, so I got shot like upper abdomen, lower chest. And then I got shot in the leg. It went in and out of my left leg. And so, the weird thing was like adrenaline and trauma and processing. The weird thing is I didn't even realize I got shot. I think, so he took off running like right away. Like he sprinted, and, weirdly his cousin did too. And, I heard him say no, and he like took off running. And so I didn't fall down. I didn't like stumble or anything, but like weirdly I felt the bullet go through my leg because it went in and out. It went in the front and out the back of my leg because it was a pretty big gun. And so I felt that first. It was just like super hot. It was super like just what the heck. And so I looked down so that kind of scared me because there's a really big artery in your leg, the femoral artery. And something just brought my brain to that right away. And I was like, oh, damn. And so like, I just took the heel of my hand. I was standing there and I took the heel of my hand and I like jammed it into my thigh to try to like stop the bleeding. Right. And then when I did that, my entire torso just lit up on fire. It was just like hot. It was uncomfortable. It was all of a sudden really wet. And I looked down and I had a button down shirt, like a salmon colored button down shirt. And I looked down and the just entire front of my shirt, like right here was just growing in blood. And I was just like, whoa. And so so I turned around, there was like a little storefront next to the bar that had like glass windows. And I was looking and it was just like, what just happened? And so then I've got one hand and it's pressed into my thigh. And I take the other hand and I like press it into that. And I walk back to the bar and I look at the bouncer. I'm like, did you call the cops yet, man? Or what? He's just standing there. I'm like, did you call the cops yet, dude? And he's just like looking. Yeah. Oh, you see, this is the thing. The weird thing is I knew I had to be calm. And it's like this, so then he was like, yeah, they're on the way. And he's like looking at me like he's seen a ghost, right? And he's just like, they're on the way. I was like, all right, can you get out of my way? Cause I need to sit down. So I walked in and a girl that was there, everybody was just looking at me like, holy shit. One, they had already seen me take the knife from the guy, but then now they see me come back in with a couple bullet holes in me. So I sit down at like this little bar top table and this girl comes up to me. She's like, do you want a water? And at this point, I don't trust anybody, right? I'm just like, I need you to get away from me. And I just remember like slowly starting to just really get a grasp on what happened. And this is the thing. If you panic, you'll bleed out. I'll tell you a lot of the things that passed through my mind at the time was like, the first thing is like my dad, who was alive back then. I'm like, my mom, my family, like, and I just kept wondering like, this can't be my legacy, right? This is not, you don't go to LA and die in a bar from getting shot. Who are you? You know, I started thinking about a lot of stuff. Like I was thinking about not being a dad. I was thinking about like that was probably one of the first things, like, you know, my legacy. What was my legacy? Was it to go to LA and die in a bar? And it was weird because I'm processing all this at a very rapid rate while trying to figure out if an ambulance is even coming, you know, and that was weird. So I'll tell you, it's actually kind of a laughing joke with some of my friends in LA. Just weirdly, I text messaged my assistant manager, and his name's Jason, and he's probably one of my better friends to this day. I said, hey man, I'm in San Pedro and I just got shot. He texted me back very well. He's like, what can I do? What are you doing? Where are you? And I was like, I think an ambulance is on the way. Can you cover my shift tomorrow? I did. And he's just like, what? So yeah. And that's just me. So obviously I had to at some point see the video footage of this. It was like 7 minutes that elapsed. So the weird thing is the cops came in, and when they came in like 30 deep. And, you know, they came in, there's so many cops. They were like looking around. They were like yelling at people. The thing is, the cops knew that was a gangbanger bar. The problem is the cops didn't know who I was. They didn't know that I wasn't, like, I think when they looked at me, they realized that I was not one of them. I had just come from work. I had a dress shirt on, like I had just come from work. And so I think they realized that pretty quickly. And obviously because of the way I was talking with them, they were like, who shot you? Who is this guy? Where is he? Where did he go? And I was like, listen, your job is to get me to the hospital. You keep me alive and I'll tell you anything you want to know. Until then, I am not going to get myself worked up. And they were like, okay. Stretcher came in, got in the ambulance. And this was where the weird just happened, because I was getting cold and I started fading in and out of consciousness. And this is like, I could feel the ambulance like swerving off the road. Like I could feel it. I could feel like gravel. Like this is LA. It's not like Wisconsin where like every road is the same. This ambulance is, I can feel it like all over the place. And I'm just like, oh man. And I just remember while my eyes were closed, just like thinking this can't be good. And then I actually heard myself flatline. I can't tell you much like right after that, but like I heard it, and then the next time I opened my eyes, I was in the hospital, and they had brought me back to life. They were like they were above me, like clapping in my face, and I just remember like hearing the clap, like it was just like lightning, like it was thunder, like it was just like a, and I just was like, and somebody's literally on top of me, like clapping in my face. I was just like, wow, what is going on? I just remember just how bright the hospital lights were. And then it all like rushed back to me, like what had happened. And from what they say, I started laughing. Like I just couldn't believe I made it. Like I was just like, what is going on? This is not me. What movie is this? Like, just yell cut. Let me figure this out. Like the toughest part for me to grasp of the whole thing was that I've always been super respectful. You know, I never, it's one thing like I just never tested. And so for that to happen in that context and to know that I was like respectful and I just wasn't an asshole to this guy, I was just like, dude, you just tried to take me off this planet. Like, for what? Like, for what, man? Like, for what? So what I learned later is that it was racial. Once, once he established that I wasn't Hispanic, and that's what he was doing by saying, are you Caesar or Cesar? Once he established that, that's when he was just like, get out of our bar. So yeah, this is kind of what happened next. So operating room, they obviously put me on so they could operate on me. Then they had to remove 2 feet of my intestines. And they still couldn't operate on the bullet because it was lodged like pretty much on my spine. So like in that picture you saw, it'll be there for the rest of my life. So it's lodged there until I lose muscle mass back there. And like it can, the scary thing is it can float. Like if I lose muscle mass and it like floats out of this position and it hits like one of my nerves, anything that's around your spine, like, but yeah, so get to the operating room, I get knocked out. I wake up the next day and again, so the guy that owned the music venue, that I managed was the first person I saw when I woke up. His name's Alan. I still think he's an amazing human to this day, and I see him every year when I go back. But that bartender, I think I told you I was looking for the knife. The bartender took the knife and hid the knife. So it's not a bar anymore, but I own the building that the bar was in now. I sued him. And I took the assets. Well, I closed the bar down. I did that right away. So there was a buddy of mine in LA was a developer, and he was just like, I can turn it into condos. I was like, cool, let's do it. So I was supposed to be in the hospital for, I mean, at a minimum of 3 weeks. And by the end of the first week, I just wasn't good at just laying there and being drugged up and going in and out. The whole community came out. It was so sweet. Like the entire community of Hermosa Beach that I lived in, they were like they were in my hospital room daily, like just being amazing. And these are people I had no idea they even cared about me. Right? I was going to do whatever I could to get out of that hospital earlier. So after day 3, I was being fed through a tube day 1 and day 2. At day 3, like the tube started to hurt my throat, but then they were like, just kept hitting me with so much morphine that I was just like knocked out. And I hated it. So I told them to take me off morphine, and they were like, look, if you do this, you're going to be in a lot of pain. I was like, I don't care. Like, I can't not communicate. I can't call my family. Like, I'm in and out too much. So yeah, it was really painful to not be on pain medicine afterwards, but it was weird how fast I got better though. Like I progressed more and more daily. And the doctors the doctors told me it was because the morphine wasn't sedating me. So after a week, I think on day 4, I was doing laps around the hospital. it was obviously against the doctor's orders, but I signed myself out of the hospital on day 8. And a buddy of mine, I told him, I was like, hey, my Jeep is parked in San Pedro. I need you to go get it. And he was just like, wait, you want me to go back to where you just got shot at? And I was like, yes, I need you to go get my Jeep. So he brought my Jeep up to the hospital and 25 staples in my chest. I got in my car and drove. And the very first place I went to was work. I'm like, I'm going to lose my job. People are going to think I'm nuts. And then I show up there and they're like, what are you doing? So, yeah, I had to go to the station to identify. They showed me a bunch of pictures, right? And I had to identify, the person, which I don't know if I've ever been so mad in my life when I saw like his picture. Like I like flipped the table. I went berserk. It was just weird that it all just flooded back to me like that. I was just so angry. At that point, I went back to work and I think it was my mind playing tricks on me. Um, but I started feeling like I was catching glances from people like that I didn't know. And it just became a really shitty life at that point. I wasn't scared, but like it was more like I think more than anything, I felt like I was putting other people in danger. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't that I was personally scared. It's like me being at work, yeah, and this guy, the guy that he knew where I worked, obviously. So at a certain point, like I felt like I was putting people in danger. So, so it didn't take long after that before I was like, yeah, this isn't a good feeling. I don't want to put anybody in danger until this thing resolves. I have to go. And so I flew to Michigan. No, actually, I got in my Jeep and drove to Michigan. I get back to Michigan. I'm like laying low for, not really like laying low, but just, for a couple days. And I actually get a call from the police saying that they caught him. We'll give you a heads up on when court is. You're going to have to come, all this. So obviously he was being charged with attempted murder. He's also being charged as like a habitual offender. He's shot somebody before, apparently. Um, so he shot somebody before when he was like younger. And then, I weirdly ended up getting a call from the mayor of San Pedro. Oh, when they got him, they went inside of his house or whatever, and I guess they found just like a whole room full of machine guns and like automatic weapons, and so like, they said it was just like so much drugs. It was like $3 million worth of drugs. Apparently, this guy was like really high up in this gang, and so I just went silent on the phone, and he was like, "You okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm just glad he didn't shoot me with one of those machine guns." Like that would have been weird. That would have been weird. So the guy that owned the bar, like I said, I ended up seeing him in court not long afterwards, and it was a very easy trial. There was obviously video footage, which was really hard for me to watch. I can't remember a time that I've ever like cried so hard. I'm sitting on the stand in this courtroom in LA in front of this jury about, because I'm suing the guy, right? So, they're trying to, obviously it's the defense's job to try to make me like I did something. And like, I just got so angry because the whole time they were acting like I was like they were like trying to act like I was an aggressor, like I was like trying to beat this guy up or something. So as soon as like that was how they started it all, but as soon as the video played, like if you would have heard the gasps from the jury, like it was just wild. And like it was really weird watching me like take his knife from him and like choke him out. Like that was weird to me, just watching myself do that. But probably even weirder was like the look on my face as I was like holding myself together, coming back to the bar. Like it showed me walking back in like that. And that was like so scary. Like it was so scary to see yourself like on the edge of death. Like that was hard. So I couldn't help but be emotional. And then like it was nice because after they read the verdict, I haven't been in this situation before, but like being in court and having somebody read a verdict and like the validation and the vindication. And it was kind of one of those moments where I was just like, I wanted to, it made me want to choke that guy. Like, how dare you say bad things about me when I did nothing to you, your bar, your people? How dare you make it like I did something? And so, like the jury, like hearing the jury say that was just like, and I wasn't on trial for anything, you know? So it was like, but it was weird. It was weird that that's the psychology of it. Like that's how, you know, when somebody, and I don't, to be honest, I don't look at myself as a victim, but when you look at victims of certain things, it's weird how you go through a trial or you go through a situation and somebody tries to make you believe that you are at fault, you know, and that's just a wild thing. And, so yeah, so that was cool. Yeah. So it was cool. The jurors all came up to me and were just like, they're like, wow. They were like, so, and like, there's not even really a moment where the jury and the people really talk. The jury kind of just leave, but they literally filed up to me and they were just like, that's amazing. Like, this is amazing. Yeah. They're just like, this is amazing. And I was like, thank you so much. Yeah. I think the only thing I probably would have done differently is like once the guy comes up, like I probably should have just left. Like I probably should have recognized what he was doing a little bit sooner, you know, but again, it's too hard to say that I would do something different because what I was doing was honest and what I was doing was real. And, I've always cared about people of all races, of everybody from anywhere. When I got to LA, when I first moved to LA, I was so just impressed with LA just in general that like I had nothing but respect for everybody there anyway. So it's weird. I know I'm responsible for my actions and I'm just not going to disrupt what's around me. That's just it. So if that means I have to put my hands in the hair and walk backwards and say, hey, you're right. I would have done that. Given the opportunity, I would have done that. Given the opportunity, if you would have said, hey, you're in the wrong bar, you need to leave, I'd have been like, I'll take my check. Very easily. Very easily. But he took it there. Like, he took it there, and it sucked. It sucked that that was the turnout. And so what happened was that gang lost $3 million dollars worth of drugs. They lost their guns. He, like, messed it up. So he's in trouble with them. Like, I don't, I, I don't even remember when he gets out. He ended up getting 30 years. He ended up getting like 30 years. So, and it became federal because guns and drugs, they found him with guns and drugs. And so it became federal. So there's not one day that I can wake up. Just picture this. There's not one day that I can wake up and not think about it. There's not one day that I can forget it. I get out of the shower. I get out of the shower every day and look at that scar. And do I like trip on it and be sad about it? No, but just it's a part of me. And it's, you know, I think trauma can break you or it can shape you.